Of course, Facebook's messing up. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, for my viewers on YouTube, welcome to another episode of Too Many Chair Shots. I'm working on getting Facebook figured out, but I want to make sure that I introduce my special guest, the man, MANN of the hour, Jeff Mann.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. So we were going to do this on Thursday. Power went out here Friday. He had to work on Friday. Then he got nailed with weather too. So better late than never. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good to be here, man. I'm stoked to get on.
Oh, absolutely stoked to have you, man. We've talked to people that know who you are. You know, we got Stud Bronson knows who you are, Nate Hewitt. So they've name dropped you a couple times.
Yeah, Stud Bronson's a great dude, man. He's a hell of a wrestler and a stand-up guy. I like that guy a lot. He's great.
Yeah, man. He's mentioned you highly. So yeah, just kind of like go through what all you do. You're a jack of all trades.
Sure. Well, I mean, so we're on the Too Many Chair Shots podcast. So as far as wrestling stuff goes, I've been announcing pro wrestling for different promotions here in Southern Arizona since like 2006 or so. I took a break for a while, but that is, probably the main thing that your listeners would be kind of interested in. But yeah, before that, I've been a roadie for.
Oh, something happened to your mic, brother.
Oh, you got me still?
I got you now, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll stay close. I was a roadie for rock bands before that for like 10 years, 92 until 2002. I was working for bands like Megadeth, Kiss, Alice Cooper, Suicidal Tendencies, traveling all over doing stuff like that and playing in rock bands. I wrote a book about my time touring with bands, so that's pretty awesome. I'd love to do one about my wrestling stuff too. Yeah, and now I'm still and then I got into roller derby announcing. That's kind of how I got into wrestling, and we can tell that story as we go. But I was a roller derby announcer for a really high level. Tucson's got one. I'm from Tucson, Arizona, and they've got one of the oldest and most established roller derby leagues in the whole country. So I was announcing for those girls. And then I started refereeing roller derby. So yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about, man. Anything you want to talk about, we got it.
Oh man, hell yeah, we'll go through it as we progress through this. Our last one was 2 hours and 45 minutes. So we'll go for 3. No.
Oh my gosh, right on.
We had a blast. That was with Nate and Dahlia Black. We were having a good old time talking to them.
Right on.
So yeah, brother. So I figure what we normally do is we talk about you, obviously, but then we kind of bring in a topic of interest, and me and you decided on, the best announcers that have done it for years and years and years. So,
yeah, for sure.
Who do you want to start off with? Because I know the list is a mile long.
Well, I put together like a top 10. So maybe we could work through that or something, or start at the top, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, man. Let's start with number 10. Who do you got?
Well, for 9 and 10, now I came into wrestling kind of late, so I'm not as well established in some of the great lore and history of pro wrestling. But I can't. This list wouldn't be complete if we didn't have Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain on there. So legends, and got to give them their props. Although that was a little bit before my time. Those guys, I feel like they really paved the way for where announcing would eventually go and made it such a huge part of the show.
No, yeah, you're right on that one. And Bobby went from WWF at the time, then he went to WCW. And he just those two had a voice together, and the camaraderie. That's one thing that you have to have when you're commentating together. You got to be able to get along. And Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, I mean, just what a great team, without a doubt.
Yeah, and they weren't exactly the same kind of guy. They kind of played off of each other, so that was important because, I mean, nothing's worse than listening to guys announcing. And I run into this sometimes with what I'm doing, and all they want to do is agree with you and amplify what you're already saying. Yep. Which I get it, but it's a lot more fun if somebody tells you, you're completely wrong, man, and here's why,
Right. Give me a reason. Now, if I'm wrong, give me a reason, because then we'll go on for 2 hours about why I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly right.
Definitely.
Yep.
So Yeah, definitely a good team there. So, what's the craziest thing that you've seen, on your time on the wrestling circuit, in
Oh
Tucson?
man, well, all right, yeah, it's. I mean, they do a ton of deathmatch stuff. So HIW, High Impact Wrestling, is one of the companies that I've done a lot of stuff with, and they're pretty notorious for. I think they started out like a sort of a backyard wrestling thing, and then got into legit, wrestling. But they always leaned heavy on deathmatch wrestling. So I've seen a ton of that stuff, barbed wire matches and thumbtacks and light tubes and everything. But I think the best one would be, I think it's hard for indies to really put on a production like they would like to, because it's so expensive to have like a cage or to have all these cool weapons or to have, you know what I mean? To
Oh yeah,
be able to do some of that stuff. So, and even a ladder match. I mean, somebody's got to go buy that ladder that you're going to destroy. You know what I mean? So it can be tough with no budget, which is how a lot of these independent groups are going at it. But in HIW, they did a scaffold match. So they got a hold of scaffolding, and this thing was like 3 tiers high of scaffolding next to the ring, and they were using that. And of course, tables came in, and they ended up doing a spot off the top of those scaffolds through like 2 tables in the middle of the ring, which I thought was pretty legit. That was pretty crazy.
yeah, I would probably say so too.
Yeah, that was nuts. They must have been, I don't know, 20 feet up, and tables. It was pretty cool.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, my co-host for my other podcast is commenting. So Clint says roller derby looks so fun. How fun is it?
Oh, roller derby's great. Yeah. I got involved with that. With a woman who put together the roller derby league here in Tucson, knew me from the music scene here in town. I played drums, part of the music scene. She did some stuff with some bands that I was in, and I would watch. I was watching wrestling pay-per-views all the time. I'd have pay-per-view parties, so I'd invite people over. Everybody chips in, get a bunch of beer and pizza, check it out.
Oh,
And I would just start sort of. I loved the announcing. I loved JR and the King. And this is in like that Attitude Era, '96 or so, in that time. Yep. And I would just start announcing along with the wrestling as I had a few drinks. And she, when she was putting the league together for roller derby, said, "Hey, I love what you're doing at those wrestling things. Why don't you really try and do the roller derby thing?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" It sounded cool. And it turned out to be a blast. Roller derby, super fun, the coolest people you'll ever meet. Really, really, really cool.
No doubt. He also says those women are not to be messed with. They hit hard, and I've seen it on. I remember it used to be televised for a while, and man, they would just knock the shit out of each other.
Yeah, and it's not, and like back in the day, roller derby, especially like the co-ed roller derby that you'd see on TV, bank track and stuff, was kind of a work. It was kind of similar to professional wrestling, where right. It was more of a sports entertainment kind of a thing, but obviously still hard hitting and crazy. But over time, now it's just purely sport. You've got athletes coming into roller derby who played soccer or volleyball, or they're CrossFitters, or a lot of military people are involved in roller derby, so they're in shape, and it's pretty awesome, man. I've gotten to announce all over the place. I did a tournament in the Netherlands one time. That was cool. I went over to referee a tournament overseas, which was awesome. Yeah, it's a blast, and wonderful people to work with, man.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. You got to enjoy what you do too. So you can do that,
it's a blast.
As a job, I was going to say, got to be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so. If you did 9 and 10, so I guess you're going to go 7, 8.
Yeah, let's go on. Well, I kind of lumped those two together. So up next at number 8, I got probably the best salesman professional wrestling ever had, Vince McMahon. I love the way he announced, and he was always selling the show, selling the sport, and he had some great lines. It was probably weird for the guys to work with him when he was in charge of everything, but that's my number 8 on the list.
No, that's a great one, because I mean the chemistry that he had with anybody he commentated with was great, but I don't think it really showed until he got in the ring with Austin.
Yeah,
with the mic skills, and that was the thing. He could do the commentating. He could get on the mic, and he could just rock it. And you know, it's a shame that the people say what they say about him with the whole creative thing, how he kind of, you know, has his hand in it and kind of ruins things. But you
Yeah.
know, it's come a long way. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, man. Vince did a great job commentating. Like you said, he sold it. That was the really big thing. And yeah, I love his commentary style. He just, you know, he would scream, you know, and he'd always have that raspy voice like he always does. And yeah, it was great. He was a good commentator without a doubt.
Yeah, and then his promos and stuff when he actually became more of a character in the show, and you know, obviously that was tremendous. And he was always ready to do whatever it took to put over a storyline or an angle. If he's getting, you know, getting his pants pulled or wetting his pants when Austin had that gun on him, or anything, you know, whatever it took, and hose down with beer, he would do it, and that's pretty cool. You know, not a lot of guys will do that.
Now, I wish I had a boss that would do that.
I'd like to spray my boss with beer, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be drunk by the time it happened. So, but I'll throw one out there that it's kind of underrated. He's kind of underrated, and I don't know if you caught him. But there was a commentator that was with WWE for a while, Mauro Ranallo. I don't know if you ever caught him. So he would do he was on SmackDown, and he'd always do the Mamma Mia thing. If you ever get a chance to watch him, he would just scream it. But he moved on to UFC and you know, the mixed martial arts and stuff, and it seemed to really favor him once he went there because you know, WWE, they didn't really want somebody, you know, being like over dramatic you know, at the time. Now obviously, you know, we're talking, you know, with the Attitude Era, with the King, obviously, you know, he was always over dramatic and whatever. You know, with the puppies, with the women and everything.
Right.
But at the time they didn't want it, and he was on NXT, and then he went to SmackDown, and then he went to UFC, and if you ever get a chance to check him out, he was great. I think he may have even done like soccer.
Oh wow.
But yeah, he was good, man. So if you ever get a chance to check him out, he's definitely good.
All right, right on. I will. I'm writing it down. That's cool. I'll check him out.
Oh, there's your friend right there, old Mr. Stud, Jeff Mann, King. Yeah.
Hey, Bronson.
He's awesome. I love that dude.
Yeah. Hell of a wrestler, man. He's great.
Absolutely. So one thing that I guess I could ask you, because you probably do it more than the wrestlers do. So with commentating, do you do different circuits? Do you do different territories, or do you just in one spot?
I've just mostly done stuff here in Tucson, Arizona. Yeah. Yep. Just things here in Tucson. A couple of companies that I know and I like working with. You know, for me, it's a thing that I do because I love it. Not so much that I want to, you know, I'd love to do more, obviously, you know, if I got more opportunities, that'd be great. But for where I'm at right now, it works out really well. I get to work with people that I like. It's easy to do because it's here in town. And yeah, so Tucson, Arizona is my home base, and that's where I've done everything. But if anybody has any, you know, I'd love to do some other stuff if I get opportunities.
You heard it here, guys. Opportunities. Give this man opportunities.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Right. All right. Who you got next, brother?
Up next on my list, Michael Cole came in for me at number 7. A couple of reasons. He had some classic lines, and he went to, I'm from Syracuse, New York, and he went to the Newhouse School of Communications in Syracuse. So I kind of caught my eye about him, and I really liked him. He was kind of that bridge after the sort of that golden era for me was JR and the King, and he was kind of the next guy in line for that, filling in that space. And that his line about the heist of the century with that Seth Rollins match was classic. I don't know if somebody wrote it for him, but that was great. That was great.
No, yeah, I'm right there with you. Michael Cole is a great voice. He's been doing it forever, and you know, as much as he gets so much crap for like his storylines that he had, like when he wrestled, you know, the King with, you know, and he always had the box. He had a box for a while where he would just sit in a cube, plexiglass, and every time the Raw GM would say something, he'd walk up to the computer and say, you know, just whatever he was saying. And it was great. And he still, he can still do it. He still sounds good on SmackDown with Wade Barrett to this very day. So, yeah, man, Michael Cole is a golden era when it comes to commentating for WWE.
Yeah. He definitely got involved in the storylines for sure. For sure, he kind of got transcended just being the announcer.
Yeah, and even his backstage stuff with like anytime he was with The Rock, always would rock it out literally, So,
Right.
I mean, it's just great that he's still actually there, and I think he's probably got to be the longest tenured announcer that they have.
Yeah, for sure. They run through those guys pretty quick sometimes. Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's something I kind of miss, and I dig that about him, was that, again, that sort of golden age where you had a guy, where you'd have a holding the mic for the wrestlers and kind of really conducting the interview more one-to-one, as opposed to guys. It kind of seemed like it turned into more of guys cutting a promo with the mic on their own, kind of a thing. And I miss that. That was always a great thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. It added more. There was more you could do with it, because you never knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, and I think back in the day, the guys were writing their own. There were no script writers. There was no creative team putting stuff together. So it was great to have the announcer with them to maybe kind of steer them back on course if they got off track to where the promo was hopefully going to go.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, having that in your back pocket was always good. Or you'd be like, somebody's going. All right, we're done now. You're good. You can end it.
Right.
So next on my list, and I know a lot of people hate this guy, Jonathan Coachman.
Right, the coach.
I like the coach, and he suffered from a lot of the Rock's wrath too. So I remember with Eugene, where there was a big storyline with him and Eric Bischoff, and the Rock came out. It was one of the Rock's returns, and walked him back down, and obviously didn't go well for Coach. But the coach just had a voice that you knew you there. A lot of these guys have distinct voices. That's the best thing. But but the coach could do it, whether it was backstage, commentating, and then he went on. I think he went on to ESPN.
Oh wow!
And did his own show. So I mean, yeah, he had the voice for it, no doubt, and he would just do anything. He didn't even care. Like if it was to appease the masses, he would do it. But I like the coach as a commentator, no doubt.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Great voice. Very solid guy. He didn't stick out as much for me as somebody who I could connect with as much. But yeah, super good, and always got the job done. Sounded great.
No doubt. So Clint wants to know. I don't know if he didn't answer me on this one, but I guess I can ask you, and you can just answer for both.
Sure.
How bad are the injuries with some of the indie wrestling you've seen and with some of the roller derby you've seen?
Well, I mean, with the wrestling part, a lot of it is I'm lucky. I've never seen anybody really get hurt bad in a wrestling match. I mean, there's been some botches and there's been some things that happened, but nothing, where somebody had to be, guys had to go to the hospital, but it's mostly cuts, like stuff that goes wrong and like deathmatch stuff, especially obviously with all that. Yep. That's been the most. And really, I mean, at the end of the day, I know it hurts like hell, but nobody's been seriously hurt that I know of. A lot of blood. Yeah. But in roller derby, I've seen a couple of bad leg breaks, like those, they call it a tib fib, where the two bones in the leg break. And I've seen like a couple of those, and that's a bummer. You know what I mean? That happens, because they just, it's tough.
Do they come now with the people that have had that happen? Have they come back?
Yeah, just about everybody that I've seen like 2 or 3 of them, and people come back from that. Yeah, and there's knees and things like that, but never. I mean, a knee injury is something that maybe you leave the game halfway through and then you're not, and then you're done or whatever. But those breaks, those real sudden things, those are pretty heavy duty. A lot of knees, some shoulders and stuff when they go down. I mean, a lot of times in the derby they're playing on concrete. So it's not even like sport court. It's not a forgiving surface at all. And I know, and in wrestling, same thing in wrestling, around the outside of the ring apron, we're out in a parking lot of some tattoo parlor, man. There's no mat, there's no nothing down there. It's tough.
Hey, people always say, oh, it's wrestling's fake. It's scripted, but the injuries they're real. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. Well, I forget who said it. I can't remember what wrestler, but somebody said there's no way to fake gravity. You can't
There's
fake
not.
that. So if
There's
somebody's
not.
falling, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And a lot of these guys, they can't afford mats out there and stuff. You know what I mean? We can, we're happy to have a ring in there to wrestle in. So it's a tough environment for the wrestlers for sure. I've never seen it, and I always wondered about somebody hitting a ceiling. Somebody must have hit some ceilings in the day, because I've seen that ring set up in some places with a really low surface and guys going up to the top rope. I'm sure it must be out on YouTube somewhere. Somebody must have creamed themselves on a light or something at some point.
Well, I'm going to look that up. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, right.
I'd be interested to find out.
I never thought about it. Yeah, I never thought about it until today.
No, now I'm like, did somebody bash their skull in when they went to go for a
Right.
swanton? It's probably happened.
Yeah.
They put those guys in the basement of the church.
Yeah, there's been some small places for sure.
I'm sure. Who you got next, brother?
Up next on my list, I've got Jesse Ventura. He was great. I loved his wrestling, and I loved his announcing.
Yeah, he was great, without a doubt. We had a thing on the group the other day where it had, pick two from a row, and Ventura was on there, and I think everybody just about had Jesse, and I can't remember who the other one was. But yeah, it was Rick Rude. It was Rick Rude and Jesse Ventura. That was like the pairing from that list on there. I was like, yeah, man, you got to have Ventura. Just as a wrestler was great. His commentating was great. And he was one of the. I think he may have been one of the first ones that went on to Hollywood. More so than, obviously way before The Rock, but he was in Predator. But yeah, I loved his commentary style, and he just didn't care. He just said whatever was on his mind.
Yeah, it was great. He always did seem like he was having a good time. He would definitely go off script a lot of the time. And he had that great, the one call he made that always sticks with me was that WrestleMania 3 Hogan and Andre with that line about the irresistible force meets the immovable object. It's a cliche, but it sounded great, and it really set the tone for that match, which was so huge.
Yeah, no, you're right on that one, and that saying still used today. By I don't know how many people, millions. So yeah, it was with that match, particularly. Yeah, it was it set the stage for it.
So, and then I agree with you too. It shows how much charisma the guy had and personality, and what a great worker he was, that he was able to go into movies and then politics even, so he's, that guy, he's got there's something special about him. People can see it,
Yeah. It's almost, Kane did the same thing. Glenn Jacobs, he was, started off, obviously as Dr. Yankum.
Isaac Yankum.
Yeah, then moved on to Kane.
Right.
But yeah, and then he was in See No Evil, so he was in a horror movie, and then he moved on and wound up, I think, being the governor of, is it Tennessee or
somewhere down there? Yeah, like some southern state, or city or something. So,
if you can do it, do it. That's the thing. If you're built for it, do it, because it just proves, like you said, it proves how all terrain and just how many skills you really have if you can do wrestling, acting, and politics. That's pretty damn special.
Yeah, well, all that stuff's about connecting. Wrestling at its core is about connecting with people and storytelling. So if you've got those kind of skills, and Kane, wasn't a really deep character, although they did have some cool storylines with him. But he could communicate. The guy could communicate and connect with people, and that carried over and all that other stuff. So. Yeah, it speaks to him. And I think The Rock, he'll probably do something like that someday. I would assume he'll probably try to get into politics. He already moved into movies,
Yeah, right. He'll probably run for president or something. And he'd probably win it too.
The guy's got a lot of charisma. I'll tell you, I'd vote for him.
Yeah, I would too. I sit here and say it like that, but yeah, I'd vote for him, no doubt. No doubt. Let's see. So one it's really funny that he's still doing it. So Tony Schiavone. He was great in WCW. Anytime Sting came out, that was it. It's Sting.
Right.
God. And he's in AEW now, and still does it. Honestly, AEW's got some really good commentators. They have him. They have Excalibur. They have Taz, And Taz was good when he was in WWE, when he was on SmackDown.
Yep.
With Michael Cole, and they had a really good chemistry. I really like Michael Cole and Taz. That was a really good combo. But yeah, Shivani, he's been doing it forever, and he does double duty there. He does, the commentating. He does a lot of the in-ring interviews. He does some backstage interviews. So he just does it all, and he's always been that way. So yeah, Shivani's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's on the list too. We were almost to him, man. I've got him in there at number 4. And really almost that whole group of guys that were there for the NWO era of WCW. So Shivani, Larry Zbyszko, Bobby Heenan, Mike Tenay, that whole group, and obviously Eric Bischoff too. I mean, those guys had a great chemistry, but Shivani, he would always, like, I can remember times when like the NWO was down at ringside and they would constantly mess with the announcers. And it was just great to see how Shivani would get bummed out about it, and he'd be like yelling at Larry Zbyszko, "Why didn't you help me?" And it really helped to kind of put the story over. He put it across really well, I thought. And a great
you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. I think when Nash and Hall made the transition after the curtain call and they went to WCW, they walked right up to Kevin Nash walked up right with a Bud Light right in his hand, and Scott Hall was like, "What the hell's going on here?" And and they just, everybody was kind of shocked. But yeah, Shivani, he could just sell it. It didn't matter what it was. He sold it. And yeah, I think the commentators with, like you said, with NWO, I think they really got themselves involved in the story and they made it more believable. Like, we don't know what these guys are really going to do, And I think what really killed it was remember how everybody just joined the NWO? Like, it was like 3/4 of the roster was NWO. It was like, damn, I can't even watch a match anymore without there being a member of the NWO.
That I mean, it became a victim of its own success. I think it got so big, everybody wanted to be a part of it, and they were. I mean, for a while, they were just printing money, man. It was the hottest thing going.
It was.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the reason that the announcers stuck out during that NWO part was that a lot of it was built around mystery, like who's the third man, who's next, who are, and they played it up. I mean, obviously everybody knew who these guys were, but they're like, who are these mystery men? It's, coming in here. So the announcers really had to buy into that to sell that and put it over with the fans, and they did a great job. That was, I don't know, I think that was the greatest wrestling angle of all time. Everything that was involved with that, the biggest heel turn of all time, and just the biggest storyline I think has ever been. I
will probably second that. I might have to think about it for a minute, but I would say, the turn with Hogan. I mean, it's just, my God, you could tell, when it happened. People bombarding the ring with trash and stuff. It's like these people were legitimately pissed off.
Right, that was like real heat right there. They were bummed out for sure.
I think maybe the only other thing that might compare to it, and again, it involves Hogan, is when I think Nash laid down for him and he won the title. I think
the finger post. That
was the only other one. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was a crazy one too, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Sure. But yeah, Shivani, I agree with you, man. I think he's great. He was coming up on my list for sure.
Gotcha. So I guess you being an announcer, commentator,
right?
Who do you take your inspirations from? Where do you really dig down deep?
Wow. Well, I mean, and we can jump ahead to my top guys, although you can probably guess, would always be Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler were my main guys.
Of course.
And but I also, another guy that is a huge one for me. Those are my number one. My number two, Joey Styles. I loved Joey Styles, and just the way. Yeah, oh my God, it was awesome. And I loved about Joey Styles too. He did a lot of those shows alone. It's like a one-man booth, completely alone during the early days of ECW. And he was just so good at mixing. He was able to be his own color commentator, his own play-by-play guy. He knew his stuff pretty well. Part of the storyline, interviewing guys. He was, like the Swiss Army knife for them. So, but what the inspiration I always got was to try to help the wrestlers tell the story. One of the biggest things I learned about this thing is that it's, at its core, storytelling. That's what these guys are doing. We're telling stories. They're not rocket science, good guy, bad guy a lot of the time, but they're telling stories. And as an announcer, especially doing commentary for live shows, which doesn't happen a lot in a lot of places. A lot of places just have a ring announcer, and you would hear commentary like on a stream or on a TV show or whatever. So, but I've done a lot of live commentary stuff too, and being careful to not step on, let the wrestlers tell the story as much as you can, and just like help it along where it's needed. That's what I always liked about my favorite announcers. They would help the wrestlers tell the story, but they weren't telling the story.
No, you're 100% right, and I think that combo, like you said, JR and the King. I mean, it was perfect.
Yeah,
just because they would get involved with the storylines a lot of times. You know, JR was, I think he did the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club, the Undertaker at one point. You know, I think that was part of the Vince McMahon angle. I know, Stone Cold would usually come out, help him. You know, the King would, stand up for JR half the time, or if a woman was getting attacked, he would step up for him, something like that. But they would always involve. Have you done anything like that? Have you involved yourself with any wrestling?
I took like one little tiny bump in the ring. They had me like commissionering for a while with HIW, and I got in the ring doing some kind of a promo thing and took like one little bump and then powdered out and was gone for the rest of the show. Nobody, knew what happened to me. So not a lot though, not a lot. I messed around a little bit in the ring with the guys back in the day, just trying to learn how to bump a little bit for that, but that's not my thing at all. So I didn't get involved too much in that respect.
Gotcha. We used to do the wrestling on the gym mats, and when we had gym class, we would, hey, let's put each other in a stunner. Let's do this, and I was like, damn, this doesn't feel very good. I don't know if I could do this.
Yeah, you got to know what you're doing for sure.
Yeah, we didn't. So I think probably we might be able to round out the list. There's only two more that I really had, and one of them already mentioned. One was Taz, but one that just crept up in AEW. He actually both of them are on AEW Collision on Saturday nights. It's Nigel McGuinness and Kevin Kelly.
Yeah. Kevin Kelly was with WWE for a while. I'm not super familiar with Nigel though.
Nigel was on NXT UK for a little while, and then I even think he did. I think he did Raw, I believe.
I've seen some of his stuff. Now that you're talking about it, I've seen some of his stuff with the NXT, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff with the UK, and he's really, really good. I even think he may have been like I want to say like a commissioner or something at one point. But yeah, him and Kevin Kelly showing up on Collision, it was a really, really surprising breath of fresh air. I was like, I haven't heard Kevin Kelly since his, interview days with WWF.
Right.
And he still does a great job. So if you get a chance, check out Collision. I know Saturdays are normally, busy for people, and they kind of put it on a wrong time slot, like 8:00 on a Saturday. I mean,
that's
it's gonna hurt. Spot. Yeah, it's gonna sting. They use CM Punk as the, as the crutch for it, saying, if you want to watch CM Punk, you got to watch Collision. It's like, well, I don't know how much. I don't know how many tickets that's going to sell, but
right, yeah, hard to say.
Yeah, so I guess we can switch gears if you want to. We can go from commentators to actual ring announcers if you want.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. And again, I'm not the hugest ring announcer fan, so if you want to drive it a little bit, I'm familiar with a few of them, and I've done a little bit of ring announcing. I mean, back in the day with HIW, when I was the only announcer, I was literally the only announcer in the building. So I would do ring announcing, I do play-by-play, color, promo interviews, everything. So I've done a little bit of it, but it's not really my thing. But in a lot of shows, that's the only announcing you'll hear, right? That's it.
You gotta make do, man.
Yeah, they're the whole voice of the thing. And I love, one of my favorite thing about ring announcers is ones obviously at the end of the, when you've got your winner, a good ring announcer can really elevate it as they announce the new champion or, and still a champ and stuff. That's a great skill to have. So if you wanna jump on with your favorite ring announcers, I'll color in as I can.
Oh man, you literally said it right there. That's what makes it. It's like if you can elevate it, and it's actually really funny because there's one out right now, and again, I don't know how many new age wrestling but Samantha Irvin she shows up I think on Raw and on SmackDown.
Okay.
Holy shit. You want to talk
Awesome.
about absolute elevation. All you have to do is go on YouTube and look her up introducing Imperium. And it's like something it's textbook. It's insane. She could give people lessons, and she's only been doing it for like maybe 2 or 3 years.
Right on.
And
that's great.
She's amazing. She really is. I can't tell you how many times I've literally looked her up just to hear her say something amazing.
And that's one of the cool things about ring announcing too, is that it's an area in wrestling where women can get on the microphone a little bit. There haven't been a ton of women doing commentary for wrestling, but you do get a lot of ring announcers, and I think that's a great way for women to make some inroads into the sport.
Totally agree. Who do you got?
Nope, you're breaking up on me.
Oh, who you got for well, speaking of women, I'm sure you can there's a woman ring announcer you can think of, I'm sure. Should be able to.
Oh yeah, well, Lillian Garcia was always one of my favorite ones. Yeah, that's an easy one, man. That's even for a guy who's not very interested in ring announcers, she always stood out really well for me.
Always. She was the voice that I probably remember the most, other than let's see, maybe Howard Finkel.
The Fink was another big one too. I love him as well.
But she had a lot going with the Attitude Era as well. I remember when she first came in, and she was amazing when she got really going. Probably her first year, you could definitely tell she was just getting started. And then, man, when she sang after 9/11, I was like, that's it, game over.
And that was one of the cool things about that whole Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. I think everybody in wrestling, WCW, WWF at the time, they were willing to try a lot of new things. And I think bringing in a woman as a ring announcer, was one of those things, and it was awesome how it worked out.
I agree. I think it was great. And then WCW had the Nitro Girls.
Yeah.
Which was funny because a lot of them came over to WWE.
Oh, really?
Stacy Keibler was one of them, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she was. Yep. You're right.
Tori Wilson. She was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Another one. Yeah. So, I mean, they came over to WWE. I'm surprised they didn't stay in WCW. But, I mean, again, go where the opportunity is.
Yeah. I don't think they were really pushing the women's wrestling element of it that much over there, No,
and you know what? You say that now, and after I think about it, yeah, they really didn't. They didn't have any kind of women's championship or anything that I can think of. But yeah, that was the whole diva thing over in WWF at the time was, huge.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, another one that you can't really take away. I mean, Gene Okerlund.
Oh, right. Yeah. Mean Gene. And he was, and talk about, I loved his, and he's the guy I think of the most with that WCW, NWO era, conducting those backstage interviews. He was awesome. The stuff he would shoot in there in those interviews, amazing. He was awesome. I loved Mean Gene so much.
Anything with Macho Man, I was there for, because
he's got to be holding the stick for Macho Man. Yeah,
he always. I mean, and their chemistry was it was insane. The cream of the crop interview, I think that'll live in infamy forever.
It's a classic. Yeah,
definitely. Who else you got, man? Who else can you pull out?
Those are the main dudes for me, man. Really, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a super big ring announcer guy, so I'm sorry if I'm falling off the plan here.
Not at all. Not at all. There was only a couple other ones. Justin Roberts, he was kind of like towards the end. He actually does AEW now, and then Sir Tony Chimmel was really good. He when you said the elevation, that was one that I thought about off the bat, other than Samantha Irvin, because Tony Chimmel just had that that ability to, especially with like the new champion, or even just saying somebody's name. That's another thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Like certain people like John Cena, he would like enunciate John like it was going out of style. I was like, damn, this guy is like 10 seconds saying John.
Right.
And it was just cool to see that, he could say certain wrestlers' names. It was like, damn, you get goosebumps. Like the Undertaker, he would say the Undertaker, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like, damn, this guy is really polarizing when it comes to saying a name.
Yeah. Well, and you can't be afraid to lean into it like that. You know what I mean? If you're announcing in a wrestling show, you got to be ready to ham it up and to like we were saying, to elevate it and take it to that next level. So that's really cool. People that can do that, they're definitely worth their weight in gold. They'll always be working.
I agree. So, who is your favorite wrestler of all time?
Oh,
Of all
wow.
time.
Yeah. I would have to say Stone Cold. I mean, and it's, an easy answer, I guess, but and that guy just changed everything. And his stuff with McMahon, the whole run that those two had, that was a game changer for everybody, man. He's my number one for sure.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I don't think it's,
Okay.
and I don't even think it's close. I mean, him and The Rock are kind of 1 and 2, 1A, 1B, just because and McMahon was instrumental with both of them. So that's what was so wild about the Attitude Era. The storytelling was just it was just off the chart. And I guess with you being in the indie wrestling do they try to tell stories in that like they do?
They will, but it's tough because you don't have, I mean, and now with like Facebook videos and YouTube and stuff like that, you can get a better kind of a cohesive presentation of all that media. But it's tough, I think, for a lot of these guys because they don't have a 2-hour block of time where wrestling fans are there to watch everything that they're doing. So a lot of companies that I've done things with, they'll cut promos and stuff after the shows are done, and they'll put those out there. But the people that I think are seeing that, they're already into it. You know what I mean? They're already fans. So it's really tough, I think, for them to do that. But yeah, I think everybody's got storylines that they're trying to push forward and stuff, and that can be really cool. I love it when that's happening. It's kind of a bummer sometimes if it's just, is there a story in this match? Because I'll always meet up with the guys before and go, what are we trying to talk about? What are we trying to put across here? And if it's just kind of a straight up wrestling match, I'm like, okay, cool. We can do that. We got a baby, we got a heel, and we'll do it that way.
Exactly.
But yeah, there are some good ones, but never as, for me, I haven't seen much yet that made me, really stand up and take notice like the stuff that that they were doing back in the 90s for sure.
Gotcha. Have you watched any of the new stuff that is going on, like the Bloodline arc with Roman Reigns or
no,
LA
I've been
Knight?
out.
LA Knight's one of the biggest people out there right now.
Nice. Yeah, no, I haven't been on it at all lately, man. It's just I have a tough time with it. I really do, and I feel like just such an old fart. My favorite really company, I would have to say, was ECW, because that shit was just real. The bingo hall, doing shows out of that bingo hall, and that was awesome. To me, I missed all that stuff. The guys, all that. And again, I sound like an old fart, but, the guys going out into the audience and doing their own promos. And it was just a different time,
No, yeah. I mean, I know I'm right there with you. I sound like an old fart too, because that's why we're doing this podcast is,
right.
like, of course I keep up with the new stuff because I have to, because just to make sure if I reference something, I don't sound like a total asshole when I say it.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. The old stuff was it was on a different level, and it's a different time. Things back then were different. You could get away with a lot more.
Sure.
And if you do have to watch something, just saying, AEW has really kind of stepped it up with when it comes to the storytelling. Unfortunately, a lot of them are like WWE people that get let go, like Adam Cole's over there. Bryan Danielson's over there, Dean Ambrose, John Moxley's over there. But I think the one thing that WWE has going for it right now is their storytelling is pretty good, and they got some pretty good factions going on. They have you know, the Bloodline with Roman Reigns. They have the Judgment Day with Finn Balor, and it's good storytelling right now when it comes to that. But I still think there's people that need to be given a push that just aren't. And that's always been their biggest downfall is,
right.
you know, they have something that they need to utilize and need to push, and they never do.
Yeah, that's always the kiss of death for those guys. And I'm a big Chris Jericho fan. So when he went over to AEW, and I was actually in on it for a while when he had that long, like the 7 Labors of Jericho or whatever, that series of matches.
Yep.
That was great. And I'm still a big Chris Jericho fan. So I'll jump in over there sometimes to check him out if something's going on that's caught my eye, because he's one of the all-time greats too, man. I love that guy.
Always will be. Always will be. Yeah, he got me into it when he was in WCW, you know, and with you know, the Lion Tamer days, and then he came over. You know, he I'll never forget his debut with Raw where he interrupted The Rock, and it was all Y2J. I was like, that's probably will go down as the greatest debut of wrestling ever, just because it was just, you didn't know what was going on. You just saw a clock. You're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, they built it up so great, and then to have him come out and interrupting The Rock and that whole thing, it was great. His character was wonderful. I don't think they really knew what to do with Jericho in WCW. He was a sort of like this generic babyface kind of a guy, you know, and obviously in the ring he's delivering, but yeah, they were never really able. And I mean, they had a lot of other stories going on, so maybe he wasn't up there on their priorities list, but they never really used him very well. I wasn't surprised that he would want to go somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, well, he was always like you said, he was just like a generic babyface. He would wind up on like Thunder when that was a thing, and it was like, damn, what are we doing here? Like, you have such a star. I mean, and that goes for like the new 4 horsemen, you know, Malenko, Benoit, Guerrero, and Perry Saturn.
Right.
You know, it was like, then they go over to WWE, and it's like almost the same thing. It's like, they can't figure this out. And then once they separated them, you know, that was kind of it. They, you know, they had their own story, which was great. WCW, just like you said, I think the NWO part of it, I think that burnt the writers out.
It might be, yeah. I really think they might have shot their load with that, because afterwards, yeah, that was the, you know, and then like Vince Russo came, I think.
Yeah, Russo coming over. That's when things really got bad. In fact, that's when what was that? Was that Jeff Jarrett? I remember Jarrett and Hogan had a match. I think it was Bash at the Beach or something. And man, what a absolute fucking train wreck.
Yeah.
Like, Hogan was like, Russo, I'm not dealing with your bullshit. And that's when you could definitely tell that WCW was on their way out. And then speaking of that was another good piece of storytelling, was the Invasion arc with WWF. I mean, my God, that was amazing.
Yeah. Well, it was awesome. I mean, you had all the best wrestlers in the world pretty much under one roof, so you could do all kinds of great stuff, you know.
No doubt. Do you do anything with New Japan or anything?
No, I haven't checked that out very much either. That's not a thing. I'm not down with that too much.
That's why I like AEW, because they have a pay-per-view called Forbidden Door where they actually have a cross promotion with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's
great.
Amazing.
Well,
they have
that was one of the things I dug about ECW, is they would bring in a lot of guys from Japan. You know, the Blue World Order, and you know, it was awesome to see that kind of stuff. Some of the best matches I've seen from ECW were like just all when they brought in all Japanese guys and just let them do their thing. It was such a different style.
Yep. No, and AEW does it well, because they'll incorporate the storylines with those characters, like Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. They had probably one of the best matches this past month, and it was like, man, why can't WWF do this? Why didn't they do that back then? You know, you have WCW, ECW, but you know, I understood, you know, the whole brand battle and everything, but now it's like AEW gets it.
Yeah, so I like what they're doing a lot. What was that one? And then Jericho had that hardcore match with the pizza cutter. Who was he wrestling? I forget the guy's name.
Was it MJF?
I don't think so. He was a guy. He wrestles for like GCW. He's an Indies guy, and they had that match with it was a death match on AEW with the pizza cutter. I can't remember the guy's name.
I know there was one guy, Nick Gage, I think.
Nick Gage, that's it. They did the match with Nick Gage, right? And like he's doing like a pizza cutter thing, and then they cut away to a commercial, and it was like Pizza Hut. It was the most perfect timing in the world.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was fantastic. Now that you say, yeah, I remember that now. It was fucking amazing. It's like, wow, y'all definitely paid some money to get Pizza Hut to come on right after that.
Right, and I was just surprised that they would go that way, though. You know what I mean? To give like a death match a shot, you know, on whatever channel they're on. I was surprised they did that, and I think it took some courage to do it. So that's pretty cool.
And they've done a lot of good stuff when it comes to like the types of matches. They just had Blood and Guts, and they did it's like War Games. I don't know if you've ever seen the War Games.
Yeah, I remember War Games.
They have the 2 rings, and that's what they have with Blood and Guts. And it was it was the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Adam Hangman Page, and Ibushi from New Japan, and it was against the Combat Club, Blackpool Combat Club. So that's Moxley. Anyway, it wound up being a really great match. Like they had like Bed of Nails come out and get involved. You know, people climbing on the inside of the cage and doing elbow drops through tables. So they do a really good job when it comes to the whole hardcore thing, but man, it's kind of cost them a little bit because their top wrestlers get knocked out.
Yeah, well, they've got the budget. I mean, the guy Tony Khan there, he's got the money to buy all the cages he wants, so they can do whatever they like. That's pretty cool.
That's true. And they're about to do a big old production in Wembley Stadium in August, and I think they've sold like 73,000 tickets, which is insane for a wrestling event in Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, that's like WrestleMania stuff. That's pretty cool.
Right? No, exactly. Yeah, brother, I knew we were going to have a good old time here. You know, and you're, like I said, you know, looking at your Facebook shit, you're jack of all trades. You've done it all. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to say to the masses out there, how they can keep track of you if you want them to keep track of you, or?
Yeah, sure, for sure. Yeah, I've got a website where you can, and then I'll hook you up to all of my socials. And if you're interested in checking out any of my books, all that kind of stuff, so just go to therealjeffmann.com, therealjeffmann.com, and that'll take you right there, and you can check out all the stuff that I'm doing and keep up to date on it that way. It'll connect you to the socials and everything like that. But yeah, I've got wrestling stuff coming up. I've got HIW matches happening. There's a company here called Throwback Era Wrestling that I do a lot of stuff with, and just having a blast. And I'd love to do some more stuff too. So anybody out there that's looking for announcing, check me out. And I'm totally down to get involved in some new things for sure.
Absolutely, man. And post whatever you want on the group. You know, if you want to promote something, you want people to know about it, man, please put it on the group, because, you know, we got some people that'll you know, if they're in the area, they'll check it out.
Right on. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, just and that's about it for me. Just a couple more guys that I wanted to mention before we go.
Absolutely.
And we already talked about Eric Bischoff, but I just want to make sure I give him the love that he deserves. That guy, awesome on the microphone. He was, I thought, a decent announcer, but once he became in the NWO push, he came to life, and he's one of the top cats in this business. And another guy like that, Paul Heyman, Paulie Dangerous.
Oh, geez. Oh, my God.
I
forgot about Heyman, man.
Yeah, anytime you put a microphone in that guy's hand, it was just like a license to print money. Especially, I loved him as an announcer, but then once he was the face of ECW, so real. I mean, and so much of what ECW doing was, I think, sort of like a worked shoot, you know what I mean? And he would just let it hang out, man. So good.
He's still in it. He's with Roman Reigns. It's like, holy shit, this guy, you can't get rid of him.
Right. Well, and again, guys like that, he can work forever. You know what I mean? He can work forever. He connects with people, and he's a storyteller. So those were two guys that I wanted to make sure that I gave some extra love to here before we cut out from this thing.
No, definitely. And I'm glad you brought up Paul Heyman, because, again, I mean, you wouldn't have had ECW without Paul Heyman. There's no way. It's no way. And I don't think you would have had Brock Lesnar without Paul Heyman, and I don't think you would have had CM Punk without Paul Heyman.
No, and he gets, and I mean, Paul gets a lot of heat because, you know, a lot of stuff went down back in the day with ECW, I guess, as far as business stuff goes, and you know, but he's out there trying to make something happening and build something from nothing, and you know, shit happens sometimes, I guess. So
that's right, exactly. ECW
the
happens,
business.
which I'm okay with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Again, I can't thank you enough for hopping on. I know Saturday at 2:00 just seems like a random ass time. I'm glad you could take the time to hang out with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be on our YouTube channel. I'll let you know when the link comes out. Actually, it'll be on our YouTube channel as soon as I hit end broadcast. So,
Awesome.
Yeah. Feel free to share it. And brother, again, I appreciate you coming on, and I will talk to you later.
All right, Don. Thanks, man. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
All right, brother. No problem.